Hello everybody and welcome to the United Stand. Hope you're all doing very, very well. I certainly am. It's Friday, but no football this weekend, but lots to talk about. No Manchester United football anyway, but lots to talk about at Manchester United. Very interesting since the attack on Woodward's house and a complaint by Manchester United in relation to the Sun, which we'll be talking about as well. Also, some interesting stats against the Martial haters. Lingard statement, very interesting as well. We're 16-1 to sign Lionel Messi. Forget about it. And a few other things. But let's start off with Paul Pogba, Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. There were stories going around today that because Paul Pogba is not part of the the winter break that Manchester United are going on to I think they're going to Marbella, that Ole Gunnar Solskjaer has axed Paul Pogba. He's decided enough is enough, and that Paul Pogba is not part of our plans anymore, and he's not going on the tour on the winter break. This is a load of nonsense. This is not true. Paul Pogba and Scott McTominay were never going on the winter break, and Ole Gunnar Solskjaer has not sacked or axed Paul Pogba. Would you axe Paul Pogba, one of your best players, a player that can create goals when you can't create goals, when your job is on the line and you're virtually facing the imminent sack? Would you say to Paul Pogba, I'm not going to pick you? Absolute load of nonsense. We do tend to get this sort of nonsense when when there is a bit of a break, and Pogba is always an easy person to target, especially in relation to the media and the mainstream media. And I find it quite insulting actually at the end of the day. I mean, who actually believes this nonsense? We spoke about Paul Pogba at the start of this week. It was known at the start of this week that Paul Pogba and Scott McTominay would not be going on this winter break to Marbella. They would be staying in Manchester to recuperate from their respective injuries. Then, in the last day or so, we get this news that from some mainstream media outlets that Paul Pogba's been axed. He's not going on the. He's not going on the winter break, so he's been axed. Nothing. Has Scott McTominay been axed? No, of course he's not. It's a load of nonsense. It's an absolute load of nonsense. There is actually some positive news. It was floating around a little bit more firmly on social media than the actual quote was. Sky basically were writing about Manchester United's injuries and came out with the line that Paul Pogba will be hoping to be back for the game against Chelsea a week on Monday night. This has then been interpreted by some people out there that Paul Pogba will be back for the game against Chelsea, brackets Sky. That's not what they've said. They've said they'll be hoping he'll be back. I would also hope that Paul Pogba's back. I think Paul Pogba and Bruno Fernandes in the same team is very, very exciting, as well as what can Ighalo do. It's going to be very, very interesting. But I also think that it would be somewhat odd if we did see Scott McTominay or Paul Pogba in the game against Chelsea, and I would actually not play them. Ooh, shock horror. I wouldn't, because if they're not going on this winter break, which is they're flying out to Marbella tomorrow, I think they're going to be there for most of next week. They're going to be working on some attacking plans, apparently. Maybe we should have done that before now. But if they come back and then pick Pogba on Monday, it sort of goes against, why would you have not took Pogba out there to be part of whatever little group thing you've got going on in preparation for the next part of the season? So it just smacks to me, if Pogba's not going on this little break to Marbella, then why would you play him against Chelsea? Why would you rush him back for a game like that? It is a very important game. I've got to say it is a very important game, but I just think the last thing we want to do with Paul Pogba is go and give him another injury. I think we need to be sure with Pogba and we need to be sure with McTominay, because we've got a lot of games. And I personally actually think the Europa League's our priority now. I don't think we can get top four. I think we've got to hang in there for it. But I think the Europa League, nobody's cup tied. Everybody can play. Get to the last stages and maybe get Rashford back. That would be a massive boost in the semi-finals, which I think is the back end of April, early part of May. That, to me, is what United need to be focusing on. And I think short-term gain isn't going to help us. We need a long-term plan. Andrew Chow says, Mark, I sense the media and opposition are attempting to derail United. Thinks regarding Pogba, Ed, Martial attempts to drive the club to the ground. Well, I was on about this today, actually, and I do find it... I mean, look, the evidence is there with Paul Pogba. You can see clips of him in the tunnel at Old Trafford, getting the players up. I saw one today. He's, all the players are quite quiet, and he's there. Come on, from minute one, we go at them. We've got to get at them. Paul Pogba, to me, and this is only a personal opinion, I've got nothing to back this up other than what I see. I see a player that actually has an affection for Manchester United. You could sort of understand why he wouldn't, You know, there are United fans that don't like him and make it very obvious. We saw the videos at the end of last season where people telling him to F off. And yet, in the summer, when he said he wanted to go, he didn't down tools. He said, I'm going to be respectful to this club and I'll play for it if you're making me stay, but I want to go. And the club forced him to stay. And I think with Pogba, he does have a respect and an affection for Manchester United. Now, how deep that affection and respect is in the modern world of footballers, who knows? But I certainly think it is there. And I do think he gets a bad treatment. And I do think a lot of it's to do with just a natural dislike by some people towards him. Some in the mainstream media, some in our very own fan base. And I think this spreads to Martial as well. And I think all I can say is, and I have never heard any mainstream media pundits or at all, or mainstream media go in on Jesse Lingard or Marcus Rashford as much as I've seen people go in on Paul Pogba and Anthony Martial. Martial and Rashford very similar in relation to their talents. Pogba worlds ahead of Jesse Lingard, and yet they get more stick, more criticism than those two. And I'm not saying those two should get it, I'm just saying there is an issue. There is a real big issue. And when I talked to you about Anthony Martial, I saw something today, a clip, I think it was on some American thing, and they were basically saying, talking about Anthony Martial, saying that Anthony Martial in a better team would be a better player. He is being dragged down by a bad team. And this is something I've said for a while. I said it after a game where he played badly and I got a lot of stick for it. Will Bruno play in the Europa, says, and the Bant 1 Gaming? Yes, he definitely will. He's not cup tied for that. And Jake says, the media attack players like Pogba to get clicks, totally unfair, and our fans believe it and turn on him too. Keep him, put quality players around him, says Jake. Well, no, I don't think that. I don't think that. I think that with Pogba, he's going to go. He's going to go. But with Martial, it's a very different thing. And I think that if Pogba goes, my fear is, if Pogba goes, Martial will become the next scapegoat with the ex-players, with the mainstream media, with certain sections of our fans. I think Martial will become the next scapegoat. Pogba's gone as far as I'm concerned. Rightly or wrongly, I think Pogba's gone. There's no point trying to convince people about that. But Martial's just signed a long-term contract. And I think with Martial, you know, I do feel that we're not actually addressing the real issue here. When you look, when I look at Martial, I see a player that gets very little service indeed. When I look at Martial, I see very little quality around him, and yet people think he is Lionel Messi. He's going to go and do it all on his own, which he can't. He needs better players around him. I think Martial and Rashford played better together. When Martial was injured at the start of the season, Rashford was crap. When Rashford and Martial started playing together, Rashford was one of the best players in Europe. Martial was picking up goals. Rashford gets injured, Martial goes crap. It's very easy to see that path. It's not statistical, it's facts. Rashford without Martial was poor. Both together very good. Rashford gets injured, Martial poor. That has actually happened over the last 6 months. That's lesson number one. Lesson number two is, look at how many shots on goal Martial's had in the Premier League this season. 48 shots on goal, 8 Premier League goals. He scores a goal 1 in 6. For every 6 shots he has, 1 goal. That could be slightly better, but it could also be worse. But more importantly, Marcus Rashford's had 74 shots to Anthony Martial's 48. And I think a lot of that's because we know with Rashford, he picks the ball off the left, he runs at the goal, gets a shot off. Martial, he tends to be picking the ball up on the edge of the box, facing David De Gea, not facing his own goal. So he's not going to get that many shots off. But comparing Martial's 48 shots in the Premier League to people who play his role, Jimenez has had 81 shots in a Wolves side that apparently is quite defensive. And yet he's had 33 more shots than Martial's had this season, Jimenez, in what is apparently quite a defensive team. Mo Salah, Liverpool, 85 shots. Obviously very attacking side. Tammy Abraham, 72 shots. Morpay at Brighton, 71 shots. Even Brighton are creating more chances for their striker than we are. Morpay, Brighton, relegation-threatened club, 71 shots he's had. Now, he doesn't pull them out his arse. You know, he's not up there on his own, pulling off, you know, skipping past 3 or 4 players and getting a shot off. This is creation. This is chances created for him. Mark, would you take Kondogbia at United, says Joel Morris? To be honest, I don't think he's reached the heights I expected, to be honest with you. Hi Mark, what proper CDM besides Partey could United bring in the summer to play one holding midfielder who can cover defence single-handedly and take part in a build-up play? Realistic targets, as Tim Z35. Well, I want to stick on what we're talking about, Tim, but I think you've just touched on it there. Thomas Partey would be perfect for Manchester United in that role. That would be the one I would go for with the release clause. But Aguero, 64 shots, okay. Pukki, 66 shots. Danny Ings, 62 shots. I purposely went and got these stats because I purposely wanted to try and ask Manchester United fans, you, the Manchester United fans, what is your, I was going to say opinion, didn't want to do that. Agenda, no, don't want to say that. What is your solution in your mind towards Anthony Martial? Are you with him or are you against him? And if you're against him, why are you against him? Are you against him because the mainstream media is feeding that? Are you against him because you think he's a crap footballer? Or actually, can we actually look at what your average Premier League striker is getting and realise that Anthony Martial is getting far, far less? If Pukki at Norwich, bottom of the league, is getting 66 shots on goal and Anthony Martial at Manchester United is getting 48, there is a bloody big, very big question mark in the room. Why? If Anthony Martial is getting 48 shots on goal and Jimenez at Wolves is getting 81, not far off being double, hello, there's a very big issue with Anthony Martial. He is not getting service, and it is absolutely, undeniably there in black and white. Very, very easy. Anthony Martial doesn't get the service. And I'll tell you what, if you put Anthony Martial in Wolves' team with 81 shots, he would score 1 in 6 in those. What's that? Quick maths. That would be 10, 13 goals instead of 8. He'd have another 5 Premier League goals. So his goals to shot ratio is actually decent. If you look at, the average Premier League striker is getting around 65 shots. That would be 11 Premier League goals for Anthony Martial. That is actually good. That's good. So I don't get it. And also what I think about Anthony Martial is, what I know is he's not been that great in the last couple of weeks. But it's a very recent drop-off. And it totally coincides with the injury to Rashford. And that, I'm not saying Martial needs Rashford. I think Martial needs quality. And the only quality we've had in our attack this season is Martial and Rashford. You take those goals away, we're in the relegation zone. Facts. People have not stepped up to the plate. And in fact, I'll give you an interesting fact as well. The top 3 players for Manchester United in the Premier League who've had shots on goal, right? This is going to make you cry. Marcus Rashford, 74 shots, 14 goals. Second, Martial, 48 shots, 8 goals. Third, wait for it, our third player that's had the most shots on goal this season, Andreas Pereira, 37, 1 goal. 1 goal from 37 shots. Ollie, tell Andreas Pereira, unless he's in the bloody penalty box, do not shoot. But you know what I mean? You take Martial and Rashford out of that team, we don't score goals. So it's not even that Martial needs Rashford or Rashford needs Martial. It's that they're the only threat. So you take one away, the other one is the only threat. And guess what? If I'm playing United and Rashford's out injured, swamp Martial. If Martial's out and we're playing Man United, swamp Rashford. There are not enough creative options in that team to share the load and also allow Martial or Rashford to get the space to score the goals they need unless they're playing together. There's a massive issue with United and creativity, and we know that. Jace Malas says, we all know that if Pogba's sold, the money we make from him won't be spent to replace him. Sad to think this is possibly his last season with us. He really was top class, surrounded by average players. Johnny says that Martial is a good player, but only good. I think we need a top class player playing at number 9 if we are to get back to where we belong. I think you're wrong, Johnny. I think you're wrong for the reasons I've just said. You can put Pukki, Aguero, Jimenez, whoever you like, up front in that United team. They won't get the shots on goal. The stats are there. Martial's had 48 shots on goal. Jimenez has had 81. You don't create shots on your own. Very rarely. You get shots on goal from the people around you. So Jimenez would have half the shots on goal if he was at United. And you'd all be saying the same. He's not good enough. Creativity. Akshay Shastri says, how many goals would Martial get playing in those other teams, you think? The service is bad, but his position is dreadful. That's indefensible. No, I disagree with you, mate. I think the stats are there. He scores 1 in 6. So if he's playing in an average team, he'd have another 4 goals. Simple. We don't create enough chances, and I think until we do, we won't really understand what Anthony Martial's all about. I think too many people are calling him a crap player because since Rashford got injured, he's been up there on his own with no service, and people are just like, oh, he's shit, he's not good enough. And it's not just fans. It isn't just fans. You're getting it from well-paid ex-players. You're getting it from mainstream media people. This is coming from around the world of football. Let's pick on Martial. Let's not talk about how crap Jesse Lingard, Andres Pereira or anybody else is. Let's go in on Anthony Martial. And I would ask you the question, why are ex-players of our club, why are the mainstream media going in on Anthony Martial? And I would take it on the chin and say, as a fan of Martial, I will say this. Over the last 2 or 3 weeks, he's been very poor. But has he been the worst player? Not even in the top 5. Yet, it's always Martial. It's always Pogba. I ain't got the answer to why that is, but we all know there's an agenda. Despite all the hate, I think Ollie loves Martial, says Orlando Anglin. Yeah, because he'll know what we know. He's a top quality player, without question of a doubt. A top quality player. Going back to what Jace Malice said about the Pogba money not being spent, you can pretty much take this to the bank. The money we spent on Bruno Fernandes was money from the summer. That's been brought forward. So whatever our budget is in the summer, we've spent 48 million of it already. So I don't know what United have got in the summer, and we need to open our eyes to this, because last summer, right at the start of the summer, ESPN reported that United's transfer budget was 100 million. I remember saying, stick it up your arse, ESPN, you're totally wrong. They were totally right. We're also hearing that United, the money for Bruno Fernandes is from the summer, been brought forward through desperation because of injuries to the midfield. So who only knows what we've got to spend in the summer? I certainly don't. Just talking actually, remember Rennie Mullenstein? This will make you laugh, Friday night. And keep the questions coming in, by the way. This will make you laugh. Talking about the favouritism towards certain players and the agenda against other players. Rennie Mullenstein, I'm not saying he's got an agenda, but this was just quite funny what he said. Interviewed, read it today, don't know when he was interviewed. Basically said, words to the effect, Lingard has got the quality. We've always known that Lingard's got the qualities of Iniesta. That to me, and it's only February, has got to go down as plonker of the United community comments of the year so far. I mean, Lingard, we always knew that Lingard's got the qualities of Iniesta. What qualities is this then? He can put shorts on. He's good at tying his laces. I mean, look, I don't want this to turn into Lingard's been crap for a long time show, because we all know that. But I cannot. If somebody said to me, if I got Smarter Scout up, I should have had it ready. What player is Jesse Lingard like? It would not be, ever, in a million years, a player that's got a first touch, can keep the ball, almost magnetically to them, and does 1-2s with a blindfold on. And dribbles superbly. I could not think of a worse comparison to a player, Iniesta and Lingard. I mean, no. I mean, look, I can't even think of a player that I would liken Jesse Lingard to, and not because I think I'm thinking prime Lingard here. Lingard's always been a player that spins, runs into space, and has got a good shot on him. He has not got close control. He has not got a 5-yard pass, and he can't particularly dribble with the ball. Yeah, I was stunned by that, but I thought I'd share it. He is one of my favourite players, but Martial was injured, Mark. He also plays a deeper role to allow the wingers like Rashford to have freedom, says Noam Taylor. His movement off the ball this season by Anthony Martial has been fantastic, up until the last couple of weeks. The only reason Raul has got more shots is because Wolves, whenever they play a small team, they are more attacking, although they lose or draw. Yeah, but you know what? Even when we've played against Wolves, there has been chances created for Raul Jimenez. We've seen that. We have. Just something a little bit topical as well. I've got to get through quite a few things tonight, but I also want to be taking some of your questions. Let me just have a swag of the beer. Anyway, the Manchester United, this has been reported by Simon Stone and others. Manchester United have made a complaint to the Press Association about the Sun newspaper in relation to the attack on Ed Woodward's house last week and the suspicions that a photographer and the news outlet themselves were aware of this attack and did not carry out their duty of care to inform the police of what was going on in relation to a criminal act. So the plot thickens on this because some United fans feel that it was a PR stunt because the former head of Sun Sport, Neil Ashton, formerly of the Sunday Supplement, is now rumoured to be the head of PR spin for Manchester United, and Ed Woodward, trying to improve their persona. So some United fans put 2 and 2 together and made a 6 and went, well, look, the Sun are on the scene for an attack on Ed Woodward's house. This is obviously a PR thing to get sympathy for Ed Woodward. That is not the case. I refute that. I do not believe that. I do not believe Manchester United Football Club, Cheshire Police, Neil Ashton and Ed Woodward have concocted a fake attack on his house to get sympathy. No, I don't believe that at all. What I do suspect, and I think what Manchester United Football Club suspect, is that whoever went to Ed Woodward's house to do that did tip off the Sun, and the Sun were there to take photographs when it happened, which again would be the Sun in the mud again, reputational wise, if this is proven to be true, because how can you turn up and watch people vandalise somebody's house, take photos, and basically be part of it? You know, if you're not part of the solution, you're part of the problem. So it's going to be very interesting to see what happens in relation to that complaint, whether there is actually any evidence behind it. I would hope that the Sun will come out and deny it, or let the truth be known. Because as Manchester United fans, I don't think there's many Manchester United fans out there that agree that, you know, attacking somebody's home and private life is the way to do or make change at Manchester United. So very topical, not necessarily what we want to be talking about, but that is out there, and Manchester United have obviously got their suspicions as to the involvement of the Sun newspaper in that. Not saying that they set it up, but it looks like potentially they were aware of it and they turned up when it was going on. But there we go. The Sun newspaper will know the truth. Let us know the truth as Manchester United fans. Maybe you did phone the police and it took them a couple of hours to get there. That can happen. But the plot thickens with that one. X-Smasher says Martial got criticised because he's not English, or apparently he's lazy. He clever runs, got talent. These people slander Martial are idiots. Okay. Also, let me just say that with regards to Dybala, interesting on Dybala. Dybala is apparently going to sign a new 5-year contract at not at Manchester United, at Juventus, and it got me thinking about that actually, because I know Manchester United were linked to him, but remember Spurs got even closer to signing him, and Spurs also got even closer to signing Bruno Fernandes. So Bruno Fernandes and Dybala both could have gone to Spurs last summer. They were both quite close to going to Spurs. Ultimately, Spurs couldn't get either deal over the line. Who was the manager of Spurs last summer? Dybala, Bruno Fernandes, Pochettino. Who's a free agent? Who do many Manchester United fans want to be the next Manchester United manager? Pochettino. Interesting, isn't it? All I'm going to say is this. Those people who want Pochettino, you might be very happy in May, what I've heard. That's all I can say, because I wouldn't want to commit on what I've heard, because if it goes wrong, I look an idiot. But from what I've heard, and I still think if Ollie gets Champions League football, he will be the manager. But I'm hearing that might not be the case, and that things may already be very advanced in relation to Pochettino. But we'll just have to wait and see. I don't even know what I think about that, but my personal slant on it is, and I don't know what you lot think, my personal stance is that Ole Gunnar Solskjaer will stay in the job if he gets Champions League football. If he doesn't, he shouldn't be in the job. And then if he's not in the job, would I take Pochettino? I would. I've got my reservations, but the thing is, when I heard this the other day, I was like, well, yeah, it's very logical to sack Ollie and give Pochettino the job. Of course it is, but it doesn't actually fit with our football club, right? We've just spent money from the summer on Bruno Fernandes. If you sack Ollie and a new manager comes in, they're going to say, I want 200 million in the summer and control the transfers. If you keep Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, he's going to say, I'll do whatever you want me to do. Don't give me any money if you don't want me to. Who are United going to prefer? They want the cheaper option. They want Solskjaer. So I just think if he gets Champions League football, he'll definitely stay. Can strikers be good managers? Do they know how to build attacks? Do they know how to use a system? Or are they just focused on scoring by any way possible? Says Carl Evans. You know what? I think a lot of people with Solskjaer do focus on the negatives, and they're not doing that blindly. The negatives are there, of course they are. But to focus on a positive for a moment, I was probably the same age as many of you lot in your teens when, as many of you are now, sorry. I was in my teens when Ole Gunnar Solskjaer was in his prime at Manchester United. I could legally drink alcohol when Manchester United won the treble. So I wasn't looking at him as a kid. I was looking at him as a young adult. So my football eye was not as good as it is now. I'm amazing now, but as a teenager, you still got a good knowledge of football, and the more you watch, the more you learn. But I've always liked the analytical side of football, not the stats, but the tactical analysis that you make in your own brain when you watch a match and you spot things. I like all that. So I know for a fact, and I never knew Solskjaer would end up manager of Manchester United, but I will say this in his defence. Ole Gunnar Solskjaer was a brilliant analyst of football. Now, where he was analysing, probably the final third, because that's where he was going to come on. I don't think he was looking at how the centre-backs were playing it out from the back and the triangles in the midfield or anything like that. I think he was looking at the spaces in and around the box. And he was bloody brilliant at it, because Ole Gunnar Solskjaer could come on for the last 10 minutes and score a couple of goals. He came on against Forest and he scored 4. So he unlike many footballers, Ole Gunnar Solskjaer had a very analytical mind in relation to as a footballer and as a striker. He was a natural goal scorer and he knew where to find the spaces. So, that was always something that I felt was a positive about him being a manager. Magic Eye says, who is your realistic manager should he leave? Hopefully, also, do you think we will land Sancho over Chelsea? I love this channel. Thank you, Magic Eye. Realistic manager is Pochettino. That's the most obvious. If you're asking me who's the most realistic manager for Manchester United, it's Pochettino in the summer, because he's available and he wants to come back to the Premier League. And I mean, look, it's a process of elimination. It really is this simple with Pochettino. And Humberto Zamarno says, we all know Poch is a great manager, but you really think he can pull top talent? Who has he coached? I think with Pochettino, there's some very interesting things about Pochettino. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but when he was at Southampton, did he not buy Mane? Did Mane not come in when he was there? And quite a few other good Southampton players. I'm not sure whether I don't think he bought Van Dijk, did he? I think he'd already gone to Spurs then. But he's a very good recruiter of talents. And I think he's more befitting of what United should have gone for. If you look at Mourinho attracts big players, whether it's Zlatan or Pogba, Matic, Lukaku, whoever. That to me, although I was excited at the time, isn't necessarily what Manchester United are. Ronaldo came in as a kid from Sporting Lisbon. Van Nistelrooy came in from PSV. A lot of our players came through the youth. Roy Keane came from Forest. Paul Ince came from West Ham. So we traditionally will spend the money, but we're not necessarily traditionally go and get players from Real Madrid or PSG or anything like that. We tend to try and get the players that, a bit like Bruno now, exactly the right signing, Wan-Bissaka. Those sort of players, you don't necessarily get them cheap, but players looking to go to the next level, that's what we tend to do. And I think Pochettino can do that, no problem. But when people say who's the realistic next manager for Manchester United, look, there are a few managers I quite like. I've always quite liked Laurent Blanc. I've always thought he could do a job. I think Nagelsmann could do a job. I think that Tuchel could do a job. I think that Ten Hag could do a job. I think there's a few managers that could do it who fit the profile of almost like the players we want to sign. The next big thing. Young enough to come into Manchester United and do a project with a proven coaching track record that's not Mulder or Cardiff relegation. And, I'm being a bit pedantic there, but, actual genuine talent would be the next step for United if Solskjaer fails. But you don't need to be a miracle to deduct that Pochettino wants the Manchester United job, because he's already said that the Premier League appeals to him. Well, where's he going in the Premier League, right? He's a top 7, because there's 7 teams now, really, aren't they? He's a top 7 manager, isn't he? Who's got a job? Pep at City? Well, unless Pep goes, that's not available. Klopp's going nowhere. Brendan Rodgers is going nowhere. Frank Lampard isn't going anywhere. Arteta's not going anywhere. That's five of the top 6 straight away. There's another one. Tottenham, Mourinho's not going anywhere in the summer. So the only job, and that's if Solskjaer is in danger, the only job in the Premier League is Manchester United. So when Pochettino hints about the Premier League, he isn't hinting about the Premier League at all. He's hinting about Manchester United. If Poch comes, Paul Mitchell should come too, says Mr. Abdi. Well, I wanted him even before Pochettino was even mentioned. I think he would be the perfect sporting director of football. Only problem with Poch I see is his narrow way of playing. United always played wide. And I agree with that, Tim Z35. I never liked that with Pochettino. And it is one of the things that really concerns me, is that I do not like not having wingers. But it doesn't mean that Pochettino can't use wingers. At Spurs, he used to play like this 4-2-2-2 a lot. But the width can come from the fullbacks, which it did with his teams. It wasn't like he ignored the width. They used the width, but it wasn't necessarily with wingers. Said Jamie, Allegri would be a good manager. He's a winner. I mean, I'd take Poch over Allegri every day of the week. I'm a little bit concerned about someone like Allegri, who is also available as well. And to be honest with you, I think my issue with Allegri was more 6 months ago. Looking at how bad we are at the moment, would I take Allegri over this if we fail to get Champions League football? Of course I would. Dinky Man says, no one is going to do any job as long as Woodward is in charge. And look, I do agree with you on that. But I also think that, and please do smash a like on the video, everyone. Let's see if we can get 1,000 likes while we're live. I think that, does Ollie get the credit for Rashford? Says Intro Greatness. I was just about to go on to a different tangent there, but I have to answer that. Does Ollie get the credit for Rashford's change, hot form over the last few months before his injury? What do you think? I think for me, no. I think Ollie gets the credit for Martial. I think the improvement in Martial's game this season, and people, haters are going to hate, but he hasn't been good the last 2 or 3 weeks. I think that coincides with Rashford's injury. But I do think from August to December, Martial has had a good season in a role that he's never really played before as the out-and-out number 9. I think Ollie totally changed him. His movement. I think Ollie deserves credit for Martial. I think Rashford's form wasn't really about positional play or movement. Rashford's form was about flair. That was a flair player. Rashford for me for 2 or 3 months was the best player in Europe, or one of. He was on fire, but I don't think a lot of it was to do with coaching. I think it was just natural flair, because he was just out on the wing, skip past a few players, shoot, whatever. It's his natural ability. It's a bit like if you put Rashford out on the Ronaldo out on the wing, or a Leroy Sané. It's a natural flair. But I do think that Martial has had a good season. I do think that is down to Solskjaer. I do, and why wouldn't it be? I mean, whatever Ole Gunnar Solskjaer is, he was still a very good striker, and I still think he can tell a striker how to improve, without a question, a doubt. Just want to say as well, I know I've said it before, just want to say this as well. I don't, maybe I'm being ridiculously naive here. I don't feel that Champions League football is an impossibility. And this is why, for me, although there are very big echoes between Van Gaal's last few months and Mourinho being available, and it went all the way to the last day. I remember we went to West Ham with Van Gaal. I think it was when the bus was attacked. And I think we either lost or drew. And we ultimately ended up not getting top 4. And I remember a lot of United fans saying at the time, I hope we don't scab top 4 because Van Gaal will stay and Mourinho won't come. And it will be, I'd rather we don't get top 4 and get Mourinho in. And it'll be short-term pain for long-term gain. And I remember at the time thinking that's a really interesting theory. And I was almost falling into it myself. Although I never really, I always want United to win. And I find it very hard to go, oh, if we lose this game, the manager will get the sack. So I hope they get sacked. I hope we lose. I'm not really that mindset. But there are parallels. We have got a very badly performing manager, Solskjaer this time instead of Van Gaal. And we've got a manager that a lot of people think will do better, who is absolutely available. And that's Pochettino. So it's all set for history to strike twice. And that doesn't mean it will fail, because Mourinho ultimately failed. I think Pochettino and Van Gaal was better than Ollie. And Mourinho's got a better record than Poch. But it doesn't mean that Poch taking over from Ollie won't be more successful than Mourinho was taking over from Van Gaal. But I think Van Gaal's get out of jail card was Champions League football. I mean, bloody hell, he won the FA Cup and got the sack the next day. Ollie's get out of jail will also be the Champions League. I think there's more chance of us getting Champions League than there was of Van Gaal's team. And some would say, well, that's ridiculous when it's our worst season since 1989. But you've got to look at the players that are coming back. I think Bruno Fernandes is a masterstroke signing and will prove to be that. I think Ighalo, in many ways, although I don't think he's going to be the player everyone thinks he's going to be, I don't think he's going to be as bad as some people think. And he will give us... He's another player. He's another option. Pogba will be back very, very soon. McTominay will be back very, very, very soon. Suddenly, into the latter stages of the season, you've got depth in the midfield, you've got depth in the attack, and you've got quality like Bruno and Pogba who will create chances. So, and United will score more goals because of that. And if United score more goals, we don't tend to concede that many goals, so we'll pick up more points. So I do think that United could not quite easily, but could get Champions League football. And if they do, then we're in for another season with Ollie. The thing will be, if we do get Champions League football because of Pogba and Bruno, and Pogba goes in the summer, we could be back where we are this time next year saying, because replacing Pogba is going to be very, very difficult. And Bruno cannot be the replacement for Pogba. What I expect to see happening is, I expect to see Bruno and Pogba in the same midfield causing havoc for the opposition. If Pogba then goes in the summer, you can't just say, well, Bruno was the replacement, because we'll already have seen what Bruno and Pogba can do. So if Pogba goes, you need to bring a player of quality in to play with Bruno. And my fear would be we go, well, Pogba's gone. We already got Bruno in the summer. We got Bruno in January a little bit earlier than we wanted to. But we'll have already seen Bruno and Pogba together. And look, whatever anybody says, I look at Premier League midfields and I think that, the Man City midfield's very, very good. De Bruyne is the best player in Europe for me in the midfield area. David Silva, Gundogan, they ain't too bad. Liverpool's midfield is a brilliant midfield, but it hasn't really got that star quality. United could have a midfield of Bruno, Pogba and McTominay, or Bruno, Pogba and Fred, or Bruno, Pogba and Matic. And on paper, that to me is arguably one of the best in the Premier League. That's what we should have to come in the last 2 or 3 months of this season. I can't help but think we will improve. We could get Champions League football. One thing I discovered this season, Rashford and Martial passes one another a lot more than others seasons. Keep up the good work. Regards from Sweden, says Gabriel Akari. I think that Martial and Rashford work together extremely well. I think there is a understanding, there is a link up. And when you look at if you look at the Premier League, they've got 22 goals. 22 goals isn't particularly bad when Martial missed 2 months. Rashford's going to miss, 3 or 4 months. So it's not like they've played every single game together. They've missed quite a few as well. That isn't a bad return when you look at the amount of goals that are not coming in from anywhere else. But I do think, we have got a chance. And you've got to, Manchester United is about hope at the moment. It's not about tactics, is it? It's not about coaching. It's not been particularly good. But I do think if you drop enough players of quality into a team, they can get you out of jail. Somebody said to me in the week, you know what? I really hope Pogba, Bruno, and everybody don't get him out of jail, because it'll be happening by luck for him, not by design. It's just quality players doing it. What you need is quality players and a quality coach, and we're never going to have that. So Solskjaer needs to go. In some ways, I sort of believe that, but I don't think it will stop people like Pogba and Bruno being good players for us between now and May. Jonas Lancer says, who would be your replacement for Pogba? Chuck the questions in for the last few minutes then. My replacement for Pogba, look, I like Havertz in Leverkusen. I like Grealish and I like Maddison. And there are a few other players out there. Look, Tony Kroos wouldn't be bad, would he? But Pogba's a superstar. Pogba's a player that when we brought him back, I was like, wow, what a deal. It was the world record at the time. I was like, wow. Replacing Paul Pogba isn't going to happen. Pogba has been inconsistent at United, but the player that Pogba is on his day, there ain't many players like that. So we can't like for like replace Paul Pogba. I think one of the things I've always liked about Paul Pogba is he's unique, and I don't think we've got enough out of his uniqueness. I haven't seen a midfielder run at other people like that since Gascoigne. That was in 1990. That's like 30 years ago. So Paul Pogba, but we don't let Pogba do that enough. I mean, people will say, what are you on about? I don't remember Pogba doing that. Paul Pogba can pick the ball up in the centre circle, run past a couple of players. We don't let him do it. We don't see him do it. So, we have wasted Pogba's talent a lot. I would be happy with Maddison, Havertz or Grealish as a replacement for Pogba. There'll be a drop-off, but they're also quality players. So, I would be happy with any of those. Brian Murphy says, Mark, God could come in as manager, but it's all in vain with the parasites. Oh, sorry. He says God could come in as Manchester United manager, but it's all in vain with the parasitic Glazers at the helm. Until they go, we are screwed. Glazers out. Yeah, I think it's important to keep that on the agenda. As I said, for me, it doesn't mean that United. It doesn't mean that United. Well. As I said, there's three options here. We either continue to get worse and they have to sell the club. We continue to get worse and it stays the same with them in charge and it just stays like this forever. Or they stay but they decide to start spending some money. For me, the two preferred options are they stay and spend the money or they go and sell the club. What I don't want is what we've had over the last 6 years, really, which is just bad decision making and is gradually getting worse and worse. Thoughts on a Havertz, Bruno and Pogba lineup, says X Little Wiz. Wouldn't work. Nobody's defensive enough, unfortunately. So, yeah, it wouldn't work. Pogba won't play again for United, says Gary Wills. Yeah, but Gary. We've heard this before. We heard it in November. We heard it in December. And I said to you he will. Paul Pogba will definitely play for Manchester United, 100%. The only thing I'm concerned about is if Pogba comes back and picks up another injury, because he won't want to. I don't think Pogba's wanted to be injured this season, but he definitely won't want to be injured between now and May because the Euros are very important to him. You can guarantee Paul Pogba will be fit and playing back games for United because he wants to play for France in the Euros. He wants to put himself in the window for a move. So this doesn't make any sense, and it's not by design for Pogba, who loves playing football, to be out injured as much as he has been. I mean, he's barely kicked a ball since October. So I think we should see a well-rested Pogba, but it's very important that we get a fit Paul Pogba back. Ollie, as we know, will risk players to get results. Rashford's where he is because of Ollie risking him. Pogba's been injured because of Ollie risking him. There are other players that could easily have been injured. Maguire, Wan-Bissaka, Dan James, overplayed by Ollie. What I don't want, I understand that, I don't think I can build this game up anymore. That Chelsea game is massive. If we lose it, top four's gone because we'll be 9 points off top four. Virtually towards the end of February, it's gone. 9 points, you're not pulling that back. If we draw it, still hard, but, if we win it, 3 points from fourth place, and we're in February, we've got a chance. So this game to Chelsea is massive. It's a massive game for us. But what he can't do is rush Pogba or McTominay back and then face losing them for 2 or 3 months. The temptation will be there though, because if you lose it, it's gone. So I don't agree with it, but you can see why it might happen. Flex47 says, watch the difference in Pogba's play in the Euros and it will be down to being properly managed. Sell Pogba and get Grealish and Sancho, different teams, says Chris Duggan. Look, I'd love to see Jadon Sancho in a Manchester United shirt. I really would, but I think so much of it depends on Champions League football. Look, you know what? I mean, hypothetical scenario here, and you can rank it out of 10 on how likely you think it is. 10 being very likely, 1 being very unlikely, of course. Paul Pogba comes back, stays fit. McTominay comes back, stays fit. Suddenly the midfield has got lots of rotation because we've got 5 or 6 decent options in the midfield. Results improve. Agala helps spread the road. We score some goals. We win some games. Chelsea remain inconsistent, as do Spurs, as do Wolves. Manchester United scraped 4th place and win the Europa League. Is that totally out of the question. Paul Pogba leaves for Real Madrid. Manchester United bring in Jadon Sancho and Jack Grealish. Next season starts, Ole Gunnar Solskjaer in charge. Is that... See, for me, that's... I would put that at a 3. All right, it's not definitely going to happen. I wouldn't even say it's a 50-50 chance, but I wouldn't say it's out of the question. And that will certainly be what Ole Gunnar Solskjaer is sort of selling. But I don't know. I don't know what... I mean, that could happen between now and May because transfers are irrelevant at the moment. What happens in the summer in relation to transfers, God knows. Random question, will you do videos on the women's team, says Jamie Canning. No, wouldn't have thought so. I mean, look, I don't watch the women's team. I don't. I actually do watch women's football a lot because my middle daughter plays. In fact, I'm going to watch her play tomorrow. And I really do enjoy it, but I just don't have the time to watch the women's team, to be honest with you. I don't even have the time to watch the youth team as much as I would like to. So it's a time thing for me. I do really like women's football though, and I do wish Manchester United's women's team all the best, of course. My daughter follows them, doesn't watch them that much, but she does follow them because women's football's on the up. But it's not something that I'm going to do. We may bring it into the channel in the future for somebody else to do, but I can't envisage me ever doing it, if I'm absolutely honest. Intro Greatness says Maddison, Neves, Grealish, stream midfield. Ollie out. Maddison, Neves, I mean, yeah, Ruben Neves would be a good signing. I was just a bit surprised why you didn't mention Bruno, because we've just bought him. Is that not it? Van der Beek and Thomas Partey and Sancho if Pogba gets sold, says Saka Kapoor. The thing is, statistically, Thomas Partey, in relation to winning the ball and moving the ball on, is one of the best in Europe. But Thomas Partey is a fan service. And we are right, Fabinho, Hirving Lozano, over the years on this channel, many of us have said, go and get that player, and we didn't. Bruno is a fan service signing because we all said he'd be great, and we've got him. But I feel that Thomas Partey is a fan service signing, and I've never really felt that United were ever looking at him. I think they should be, but I don't think United would look at him. I think you're more likely to get a Declan Rice. I wish all our players showed passion like Agallo, says Brian Murphy. Well, he hasn't played for us yet, but he will show some passion, yeah. McNally 145, who would you rather have at CDM next season, Fred or McTominay? I think it's a really good question. I mean, I haven't really got an issue with either of them. I think Fred's had the better season because Fred's come from being a flop, but in some people's minds, to being the player he is. And I always said with Fred, and I know a lot of you did as well, I didn't feel Fred was a flop. I felt that he'd never really got the chance. I felt that Fred needed 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 games in a row, and he would get better and better and better, and it just needed a manager to show that patience, which Mourinho never did, and Ollie didn't really want to do at the end of last season. This season he's been forced to do it, and what have we seen? Fred's got better and better and better the more games he's played and the more adjusted he is to the Premier League. I think Fred's a massive part of United, and I think when McTominay and Pogba come back, it would be really unfair for Fred to suddenly be on the bench again, because I think that if Wan-Bissaka hadn't been so consistent, I think Fred would be up there with a couple of others for Player of the Year. I think he's been that good. My only concern about Fred is he can be a bit lax on the ball sometimes. I think he's a typical box-to-box midfielder because he does sometimes misplace a pass. And if you're going to play CDM, it can be a little bit boring, but you've got to be... Your passing percentage has got to be around 90%. Your touch has got to be very good. And I think McTominay has that capability of taking the ball and finding a pass. And it's basically rotation, isn't it? It's keeping the ball going. So I don't know that... I sort of have a hunch that I probably would prefer McTominay in that role. But if Fred could sort out the little errors he makes sometimes, I think I'd probably prefer Fred because he's more mobile. But I don't really think he's a centre defensive midfielder, which is what Enzwani's just said there as well. Dan Miola says, we've said it before, Ollie is a lucky manager. Here's the 8 games to end the season. Sheffield, Brighton, Bournemouth, Villa, Saints, Palace, and West Ham and Leicester. So yeah, there's a lot of points there to be had. I think basically Solskjaer needs to get through the next 5 Premier League games, which are Chelsea away, Watford at home, Everton away, City at home, Spurs away. He needs to come out of those with at least 3 wins. because after that, the running is quite favourable. Martial, Glazer's favourite or Pochettino's, says DT. I think Pochettino could get more out of Martial. The thing about Martial, I would say, and I've left it to the end because I've obviously been sticking up for him for ages. Please do subscribe if you're new, bottom right hand corner. Remember, we're live every night at 8 o'clock. 8 o'clock tomorrow night, we'll be live. We're live every night at 8 o'clock. Sunday night live as well, 8 o'clock. So we're live every night for Manchester United chat and debate. So join in for that. Also, there are the Dublin meetup on April the 2nd. Thursday, the April the 2nd, we are meeting up in Dublin at Arlington Hotel. You do need a ticket for it. 300 tickets have been released. We've only got about 30 left. Loads of people getting tickets, which is great. I have not put it in this video description. I will put it in, but if you want it, it was on last night's show, last night's show was the one with Messi and Sancho on it. If you go in there, there's the links in the video description if you want to get a ticket for that, because I know some of you might not have been watching last night. But really looking forward to that. We've got some good guests coming in as well. I've forgotten what I was going to say now. Oh yeah, Martial. So, as much as I like Martial, I do think, however we're going to play, whether it's with Pochettino or whether it's with Ollie, we need a striker like Jimenez. You know, sort of a Harry Kane sort of striker. Somebody who's got physicality, but can also, they've got a little bit of a touch, they can shoot, they can run the line, they are quite mobile. I feel that United need that. I think we are a threat with a front three of Martial, Rashford and, say, Sancho. But we're only a certain type of threat. There's a lot of flair in that front three. There's a lot of flair. And I think sometimes you need a bit of guile. You need a poacher. And I do think that United do need someone like a Raul Jimenez. Whether they play every week or what, but we definitely do need a striker like that. It's such a shame we didn't get Erling Haaland. It's such a shame we didn't. Thanks everybody for watching. Please do smash a like on the video. Friday night, hope you enjoy your weekend. I'll be back with you tomorrow, live tomorrow night at 8 o'clock as per usual. Also, if you want to check out tomorrow afternoon, I'm going to be live on Mark Goldbridge, That's Football, doing an hour and a half of my FIFA career mode, which is Manchester United. It's episode 3, starting off. I think we're playing Arsenal. Quite a good start. Always a good laugh. Mark Goldbridge, That's Football. Make sure you check it out and subscribe to that too. And Vin Barra says, not sure if you've already covered, but do United get any financial benefits from getting players who are in the England squad, i.e. Brexit FC? I don't think they get any financial benefit, no. I think there is this feeling that if you get British players, they're well used to the Premier League. It helps with the homegrown quota, but that's not something that United need to worry about too much, I don't think. So, no. Anyway, thanks everyone. Speak to you all soon. Thanks for watching. Really appreciate it. Really good show. Lots of good comments. And Kevin Ryan just says that no way are we getting 150 million for Pogba. Can see Real Madrid doing a United 80 million plus add-ons. Then we're in trouble as we spent it all already, I'd say. Yeah, well, there's something I could tell you about that, but I'll tell you that tomorrow night about United and their future vision. It's not as clear as they tell you it is. It's not as clear as they tell you it is. They don't have many plans. They don't know who's coming in. It's all very up in the air, but I'll talk about it tomorrow. Thanks for watching. Speak to you all soon.